We're going to talk mainly about the causes and effects of the Industrial Revolution. As you can see, I have Leonard right here along with me, so if you have any questions, just ask him. Life before the Industrial Revolution was much like it would seem in Warsaw if Dorman and Gallatin Steel and all of those companies didn't exist. A lot of farming. Most of this was subsistence farming, which is one of the words that you need to define, and to sort of help you along, those of you with that letter of your name, subsistence farming is where you grow crops in order to survive. Okay, you don't grow a whole lot to sell. So we're not talking cash crops here, we're talking family farms, enough for you to survive. It was also based on what's known as the cottage industry, which was basic. It's exactly how it sounds. You have a small cottage or a small farm that produces most of the industry in a region or a neighborhood. The Industrial Revolution changed this. It changed the way that people live. Some causes, we have three major causes. One is that there are agricultural advancements. So better farming practices create the need for fewer laborers, fewer farmers. If you have a piece of machinery that can accomplish the job of 4 people and you only have to have 1 person working it, what are those other 3 people going to do? Okay, so old farmers, those other 3 people that no longer have jobs, are going to have to do something. Another agricultural advancement would be the enclosure movement. Enclosure movement means that instead of having just big open spaces where people would farm wherever they could set down, people started to fence in their properties, creating really strict boundaries. So people who maybe didn't own land but lived, we call them squatters, lived in a place and farmed that place, are kind of not allowed to do that anymore now that there are so many fences. And that's the enclosure movement. So those people are moving to cities. This creates urbanization. Urbanization is the move to cities. There are also a bunch of new inventions, primarily the steam engine. This is the catalyst or the start of it all. That would sort of evolve into the electrical engine and then the diesel engine. Steam engines ran on coal and used water power to propel things forward. So rail cars would use the steam engine. There were canals, there were steamboats, cotton gins and sewing machines. Eventually, high pieces of technology like the telegraph, the light bulb, the transatlantic cable, where we could send messages from Great Britain to the New World in the blink of an eye. Okay, so these are all really big things that caused the Industrial Revolution to sort of take off. Lastly, we have the factory system. Okay, you can put industrial capitalism within the factory system or as its own. I'm going to sort of talk about it as both. But the factory system is where entrepreneurs create factories. Entrepreneurs are business people, people who have a lot of capital or a lot of money, and they create these factories where you'll have several pieces of machinery and a lot of people will work to create one item. Okay, and this mass production of that one item creates new products, but they're also really inexpensive products, because if you can make them with machines and you can hire children, like you see in the video or in the picture on this slide, you can make things pretty inexpensive. Industrial capitalism can be put within the factory system because that's sort of what it took for factories to be created. Industrial capitalism is basically saying that you want to have private owners or entrepreneurs to create the wealth in a community or in a society, and you want government to stay out of that business. You want government to stay out of economics, essentially. And all of this comes from Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations, and if you remember back, he was one of our Enlightenment thinkers. Okay, this is sort of freedom to make as much money as you want, if you want to think of it as one of those Enlightenment thoughts. Immediately after the Industrial Revolution, you have a rise in a middle class. Okay, entrepreneurs, or those people who are starting factories, become wealthier than even the old nobility. Okay, those famous people, those people with the big last names, we'd call them old money today. So this new money, entrepreneurship, was taking off. And industrial capitalism becomes a new economic system, and it's an economic system that's going to pretty much take over the globe. The United States is an industrial capitalist nation. As a result, you have a lot of these entrepreneurs and you have a rising middle class. You also get this working class. They're not quite the lower class. They're not quite the middle class. Now, instead of having subsistence farming where you grew the amount of food you needed to survive, you have wage labor. Okay, so people make a minimum wage, or people make the amount of money that they need to survive. Leonard's staring at me. What are you doing? He's really concerned with me right now because I'm talking to no one. Sorry, sidetracked. But back to these immediate effects. The third one is urbanization. Okay, cities begin to explode, and primarily the cities near rivers and oceans, because that offers transportation to kind of get all of these goods out to people so you can sell them out to places around the world. The long-term effect of the Industrial Revolution is that as you get new technology, more new technology comes, okay? So new technology begets new technology. So let's look at this little chart at the bottom. You get the steam engine, which immediately, which is the arrow down, creates things like steamboats. And steamboats are really important because now instead of everything going from, let's say, Cincinnati down the Ohio River all the way to Mississippi, you can have things go from Mississippi all the way up and back to Cincinnati. And that's pretty impressive. But you also get new technology, and that's the arrow pointing to the right. So after you get the steam engine, you get a lot of new machines. And then those machines will maybe create things like trains, a new method of transportation, but they'll also create factories. And then with those factories, you can create cars, and then maybe with a new factory, you can create a whole economic system. And this cycle can go on and on and on forever. Okay, until you get to things like the iPod and the iPad and anything. Okay, new technology begets new technology.